You know, there's an old adage of hockey in Canada, great things happen to great people. This guy's an example of this. In the mid 1970s, he became a household word because of his great play with Vancouver, where he scored 66 goals over 2 seasons. And they took everything they had against Montreal in the quarterfinals in 75 and gave them a hard shake. Vancouver at the time was the precursor to the great Canucks team, which you saw in the early 80s, which saw them play in the Stanley Cup final. But this guy stands out because undrafted, unsigned, fought his way through the minor leagues to be signed by Buffalo, and the rest is history. So today we're going to be talking about the guy with the great hair, the great mustache, and a great personality on and off the ice. He's done a lot for the sport. John Gould. Now, born John Milton Gould, April 11, 1949, in Alliston, Ontario. Beautiful community, of course. Played 504 NHL games for the Sabres, Canucks, and Flames between 71 and 80. He's the older son of former NHLer Larry Gould. Now, he first came to major prominence with the London Nationals of the OHA in 1968, where he had 46 points in 54 games. 69, his last major junior season, 74 points in 49 games. Now, here it gets kind of bizarre. We're going to be quoting from a website called Canucks Legends, blogspot.com, to basically talk about his career and with the Canucks. Now, you got to understand when John was first assessed. A lot of people thought he wasn't going to make the NHL because either he said he was too small or not fast enough. Now, the Buffalo Sabres, who took a chance on him, were correct when he thought Gould could be an NHL player. Unfortunately for them, they never got to reap the rewards of their insight and investment. Now, John was a 5'11", 200-pound winger who went drafted by the NHL after a solid career with the London Knights of the Ontario Junior Leagues. Now, that didn't deter him, though. He signed with the lowly Eastern Hockey League and the Charlotte Checkers, where he started. The Sabres were so impressed with what he had to offer at the minor league level, they offered him a contract. Now, supposedly, they were looking to fill out their depth charts and never expected the kid from Beaton, Ontario, to play with the Sabres. Now, when he made a successful jump up to the top minor league, the AHL, with the great Cincinnati Swords, that first year he eventually found his way to Buffalo for a 2-game call-up and scored his first NHL counter. Now, coming off an all-star season with the Swords, Gould had a great training camp in 73 and made the Sabres. This was Perreault, Robert, Martin, Guévermont, the whole kit and caboodle. He got off for a great start once the season got underway, scoring 4 goals, including 2 game winners in his first 5 contests. Then he wrenched his knee, and although he didn't miss a lot of time with the injury, he somehow lost his spot on the top line and received very little ice time. He never scored another goal in 30 games before he was traded. Now, just after Christmas 73, the Sabres went shopping for a physical defenseman and found one in Vancouver Canuck, Jerry Korab. A deal was then arranged that would send Tracy Pratt to Canada's West Coast, but the Sabres drew in Gould to seal the trade as an afterthought. Now, Gould got off to a less than impressive start with Vancouver, scoring 9 counters and 19 points in 45 games to finish the season, but he erupted in 74-75. Seemingly out of nowhere, he symbolically announced he had arrived in the National Hockey League, when he scored 34 goals and 65 points, and then led the Canucks in playoff scoring. And to prove that his breakout season was no fluke, he followed that up with a 32-goal and 59-point season in the great campaign of 75-76. Now, what really stands out for me, ladies and gentlemen, with Gould was his tenacity around the net. Now, Gould credited the Canucks coach at the time for his then success. Phil Maloney was the coach. He was good for the team, though he didn't do all that well. He treated everybody the same, and he was really a player's coach. Playing in Vancouver also means a lot of time in airplanes, and it was particularly tough back in the 70s, as Gould explains. It was a tough place to play because we were traveling all the time. The only distant place we had direct flights to was Toronto. Most of the time we had to fly to Seattle, only a 35-minute trip, but then sit around the airport for an hour and a half waiting for a connecting flight. Now, 25 games into the 77 season, the Canucks traded Gould to Atlanta in order to acquire some depth. In 2.5 seasons in Atlanta, John never quite found his goal-scoring touch, topping out at 1978, but remained a useful and versatile player. Now, when the Sabres reacquired John in 1979-80, He played in 52 games and scored 9 goals and 18 points, but ended the year and his career back when his career began in the Sabres minor league system. Now, John, again, whose brother Larry also appeared in the NHL, retired at the end of the 1980 season. He overcame long odds to make the NHL, playing 504 games in the show, scoring 131 goals and 265 points. Now, after hockey, Gould returned home to Beaton and started racing standardbred horses. At the suggestion of former NHLer Ray McKay, he joined Fundamentals in Action, an organization started by Pat Stapleton to help teach hockey to youngsters across Canada. Gould said, "I like the program and traveling communities I'd never been before." Now, this was posted by the great Joe Pelche, August 26th, my birthday, 2010. So the rough stats tell the whole story. Now, Charlotte Checkers, 73 points in 1970, and he also played with Tulsa in the CHL playoffs, scoring 1 counter. Checkers in 71, he had 100 points in 72 games, including 48 goals. 72, he had 41 points in 73 games, including 26 counters. Third season with the Swords in 73, he had 30 goals, 42 assists for 72 points, and 10 goals in a postseason. Now, a cup of coffee with the Sabres in 73 in 8 games, but 74, a half a campaign before being traded, 4-2-6 with Buffalo, and 9-10-19 with Vancouver. But those first 2 seasons in Vancouver, 66 goals in the regular season, and another 3 in the postseason combined. 77 to trade to Atlanta, 79 games that season, 15 goals, 23 assists for 38 points. Almost broke 20 goals in 78 with 19. Played in 2 postseason games. 79 with Atlanta, 8-7-15, 61 contests. 79-80, Buffalo 9-9-18, and Rochester, he wrapped up his campaign in the playoffs with the AHL side. Now, the idea about Gould's numbers didn't really tell the whole story. If you can go on YouTube and find Game 5 of the Montreal Canadian Vancouver series, his plus minus was always very effective. His best campaign, of course, was for plus minus was 1976 with a +9. Very good on defense, and rarely would take a penalty. He only had 113 minutes in penalties over his 10-year career. Now, the minor leagues again were very good to him. 129 goals in the regular season with Charlotte and Cincinnati, and postseason 3 campaigns: 1970 with Charlotte, 1972 with Cincinnati, and 1973 with Cincinnati. 1970 with Charlotte, he had 10 goals in the playoffs, 1 with Tulsa, 10 goals with Charlotte in 71 playoffs, and 10 goals with Cincinnati, so a good performer in the postseason. 3 goals in the postseason, those coming 2 against Montreal, that quick 5-game series. I think one of them was in Game 5 that gave them either 3-2 or 4-2 lead. I have to check the video. So John Gould, what a talent he was. And I still think they could have put Perreault and him together on a second or third line. I think with Buffalo, don't get me wrong here, I think in 74 he could have been playing with Don Luce. I could be wrong here. Played a lot of power play too, but I see that 75 final against the Flyers, they could have used John Gould. It's too bad. Maybe they felt it was a numbers game, and I tend to agree. Danny Gare was coming up, and different players, they're bound to take it. But they would not have made the finals in 75 were it not for Korab, so that was the best deal for them. So again, if you're a fan of John Gould or a fan of what we're doing here in the channel, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share. As we like to say on the North Shore, keep your stick in the ice. And again, please take time today to think of Chris Simon, give him prayers and condolences to his family and friends, his colleagues. He will really be missed. It's been a rough day within the Aboriginal hockey community across Canada since news of his passing passed on. Just remember, CTE is a real thing. Concussion syndrome, if you're a young athlete or an older athlete, take care of yourself. Always wear the right protection, because we're losing more people like Chris Simon. Chris Simon, probably pound for pound, no pun intended, one of the most important Aboriginal hockey players, just like Stan Johnson, Everett Santa Pass, and Gino Wojcik, Carey Price. Very, very important. to as a role model for Aboriginal communities. But if you like hockey, pass it on about the channel. We try to be positive here, but when people die, we say thank you for the memories and thank you for the good effort. So God bless you, Chris Hyman, John Gould, all the NHLers, because you make the show. You're immortal in my mind. Thanks for listening. Bye.